ask them to maybe tell us, first of all, just a little bit about their early life, where they grew up, and then we'll go from there.
All right. I was 19, what year, Jesus?
You were born in 24.
1938, I guess, 39, I was going to high school, started graduate too. I didn't do much, played, the whole thing is trying to make some money and survive. So when I was a kid, sometimes I'd walk 3 miles to the golf course because I didn't have the nickel to ride the bus. We were poverty stricken. And as a result, every time I made any money, all over, man, I went back to the family. Family oriented, I still am. God. What else can we say?
Mr. McCrory, where was this that you grew up?
In Fox River Valley. What are we now? About 72,000, I think. But way back when it was like 30,000. Okay,
how about where were you when Pearl Harbor took place? What was going on in your life? And then we'll have Mr. Persinger tell us the same.
1941, wasn't it?
Yep.
77.
Yeah, God. Can't tell you.
You don't recall where you were when you heard about it? You were out of school, were you? Were you out of school at that point?
No, 42 I graduated.
Okay.
42. 43 I graduated.
Okay.
I think.
Mr. Persinger, how about your early life?
Well, I was born in Iowa, and southeastern Iowa. And during the Depression, my father and mother, we all lived on a farm. I had 2 brothers, 2 sisters. Of course, then the banks foreclosed, and we lost our farm. My father continued to rent farms until he passed away in 1939, and we were still on the farm. My uncle lived in Marengo, Illinois, near Rockford, and he wanted to talk to my mother. He says, "Why don't you come up to northern Illinois with me? I've got a big farm, and I got a nice home for y'all, and you can help us on the farm." And so we did that, and I graduated from high school in 1941 in Cahokia, Missouri. At Pearl Harbor Day, I was listening to the Chicago Bears play the Chicago Cardinals at Comiskey Park, which is now Cellular Field in Chicago, the White Sox Park. I remember that very well, and I remember come over the radio about this bombing and Pearl Harbor happened. That, so the football game meant nothing. And this was, I graduated in 1941 from high school. Then I continued, I went to work in a little factory in this small town of about 3,000 in Marengo, Illinois. And then I could have gotten deferred because I was more or less a breadwinner for the family. My mother, my 2 brothers and 2 sisters. They had paper routes. We had done anything we could do to make money because, like Bob said, it was a terrible, terrible time. So I could have gotten deferred, but you know, we all went in the service. Everybody was behind us, and our folks and all of the people, the civilians were just all behind us, and so we all knew we had to win the war. So I went in the service. My 2 brothers, as they became older, went in the Navy. So the 3 of us were in the service with my mother alone. And the worry of 3 sons being in combat areas must have been terrible on her. But it was one of the things. We didn't go to Canada to keep out of the war. We all wanted to win this thing, and we knew we had to. You I shouldn't call you children. You young folks, don't realize how hard the times were. How it was, we never knew sometimes where the next meal was coming from. But we had to, like Bob said, we had to do anything we could to make money. And when I got in the Army, I Everything I made went right to home. I sent it home. I never left the camp down in Camp Gordon, Georgia. That's where I was until we went on maneuvers in Tennessee.
Well, let's not go too fast here.
Okay?
How did you both get into the service? Were you drafted? Did you enlist? And do you recall when that happened?
Well, I was drafted. The draft board said, stay home. You've got family there, don't go. You don't have to go because of, I was the breadwinner. But I went anyway.
Do you rec-
Not very smart. I wanted to be a Marine paratrooper, and I couldn't make the grade because at that time I had inflamed eyeballs. Thank God, I probably would have got a shot on my way down. But when I was in grade school, we learned to read enough that the sister said, now, after school, go down to the library, get a card, take out a book, and bring it to school. Well, I just so happened that I encountered Indians, and I read every damn book they had. And then, done with that, then I found cavalry, and I read about that. And when we got the train, it took us 5 days to get from, what the hell was that? In Illinois, where we got the
No,
train.
from Chicago, we went from Chicago on a troop train to Camp Gordon, Georgia.
It took me 5 days to get down to Georgia, back and forth, all that. And we finally pulled into the stop in the post, and some clown came in all dressed up like a horse cavalryman, which he was. And he said, dismount troopers. He was wearing the bat-wing pants, and I thought, oh my God, it's horse cavalry. It turned out it wasn't, and I was so happy. I was happy because I was going to be way ahead of a lot of these city guys that didn't know anything about living off the land and taking care of yourself. Thank God.
Oh, okay, this was 43. Was it?
43.
Okay, the United States declares war December 41, so you didn't get in for a year and a half.
That's right.
And in 43, at that time, the North African campaign had taken place, and Sicily, my class talked about that last week. Okay, that's when these guys get in. Did you have any choice as to whether or not you were going to be in the cavalry or the infantry?
I can tell you, I was inducted from Marengo. I went over to Rockford to Camp Grant. And for a week there, we took tests, done this and that. They picked us, and I didn't know I was put in the cavalry then, but that's where we wound up. And then they wanted people that knew machinery, and farm boys, of course, they really wanted them because farm boy could drive a tractor and had horses, and so that's probably why I wound up. I know it was taken to go to actually I become a tank. I was in a tank company and I was a tank commander and a platoon sergeant eventually.
Can you tell us a little bit about your training at
Yeah.
Gordon?
13 weeks, first 13 weeks, we had Camp Gordon for miles around, Augusta, Georgia, and all the areas, white sand, about 6 inches deep everywhere, and then clay underneath it. So we'd fall out in the morning and go out in that sand and do roll call and calisthenics right there in that sand, and we done the one I despised was called the duck walk, where you got down and walked like a duck when you hit them. So that was hard. That was but anyway, we done the side straddle hops and everything, but in that terrible sand, it got into you, it was all over you. But then we went to breakfast. Then basic training was close order drill, learning how to march. The cavalry was much, they wanted guys to really be a spit and polish outfit, and we were. And much more than the infantryman or anything. kind of just figured the cavalry was just a little higher than the infantry, artillerymen, because they didn't do the calisthenics, and well, they done the calisthenics, but they didn't do the close order drill we had. And we went on parades, and we marched with band music, and you really knew how to march, and we were proud, because every man was in step, just like you see the West Pointers. We were almost that good. Then, of course, we done some basic training. We learned the rifles. Very first time when we started, we didn't have rifles. We just had a stick. This stick, like I saw you making downstairs. That was what we had to pretend was a rifle for about 3 weeks. That's how bad a shape our country was in. We didn't have no big standing army or nothing. We didn't have all that equipment until they finally got it. But anyway, and then after you learned the nomenclature of your guns, eventually the tanks, and then we done night patrols and bivouac outside somewhere, going large 25-mile hikes with a full pack, and we really were trained, and we were in good physical shape. You had to be.
Jack Mears, we'll let Mr. McCrory tell us, but Jack Mears always told us about how they had to train with motorcycles at first. Did either of you have occasion?
I didn't. There was motorcycles, but that didn't stay long with us. I think when we finally split up and added a E troop, became an F company, the tank company, was when they split the motorcycles, and that sort of thing went out the window. We didn't, to my knowledge, we didn't have any motorcycles after that, about in that basic period.
Mr. McCrory? You recall
Motorcycles?
motorcycles?
Oh, we had about 5 fellas. They were drawn off from the group. Got a detail for 5 men, and they want to get out of there. This baloney that we were going to go through. So they volunteered, sure, yeah. So they marched them right down to the garage area, and they showed them the bicycles, they were riding, the motorcycles they're going to be riding, and they almost went into shock. But they improved, and everybody was stable. I've seen them that I was a road guide, and sand road out there came in a circle, came out, we were out in the middle of nowhere, and crossing this highway that had the edge of the highway up this way. Well, they hit the rise on the other side that the fellows would fly all the way across this 2-lane road. And I thought that was pretty neat, but that's ordinarily they didn't do that. But to learn how to handle cross country and whatnot, to get into the sand country, walk on the flats, they'd walk next to the motorcycle and keep the engine going and walk that thing through that. And then they got on the other side. This one fellow was telling me he got on the bike and they went up the side hill. And way over there was a tree growing out of the side hill, but it was at an angle. And he said, no matter what I did to that damn motorcycle, it kept going over there. And I finally found it. I mean, we rode up on the tree trunk. Got about 8 feet off the ground and we fell off. Didn't know enough to stop or couldn't or whatever. You know, froze, I guess. But he didn't want to hear any more about motorcycles.
Well, he said that originally the reconnaissance, cavalry reconnaissance were going to have two cycles and an armored car, but they decided even before you got over there that Jeeps would replace the motorcycles. Is that it?
Evidently, because I don't remember much about motor. I do remember we had them when we started, but after we got on maneuvers in Tennessee, we never had a motorcycle. I didn't see one.
The Germans had motorcycle troops, and they had a machine gun mounted between the handlebars, but that isn't too good. And but we had a tryout of that, not us personally, but the United States Army. We learned a lot from the Germans. They were so far ahead of us, it was pitiful.
Well,
Okay, is there anything more about your time in the States before you went overseas?
yes, I
Anything
can tell you that we went to Fort Jackson, South Carolina, that's near Columbia. And the reason we went there after our maneuvers, so we went back to Camp Gordon, and then we shipped over to our squadron. I don't know what the 45th, our squadron was at Fort Jackson. For one solid month, we were living out on a rifle range and a artillery range. And all we done then was fire weapons, 8 hours a day or whatever, every day. And we fired every gun that we had, from pistols to Thompson submachine guns, to our M1 rifle, to the 30 caliber machine gun and a 50 caliber machine gun, and our tanks, the weapons on our tanks at that time was 37 millimeter with that tank, the M5 tank had a 37 millimeter. So we fired all of them, and we really truly became very, very good. And if you, of course, we had training all that before we ever arrived there. We knew exactly how to take all these guns apart and do it blindfolded practically. I think we could, especially the rifle, submachine gun. But that was tiresome and very hard, and this is where we didn't have earplugs, just simply cotton. And one morning, as I hurt my ears, I was on a submachine gun course, and what they do, a target would flip up over here, and you would blast that, and another one here and there, and everybody was doing the same thing, and we were down in kind of a hollow, and the echo was so strong, I couldn't hear a thing when we got out of that. And then, we had 17 tanks in our company, and so we put 16 on a line, looking right, and we were 500 yards out, and we all, in our crew, we had to go as fast as that tank could go. And all of these machine guns from these other 16 tanks were peppering you, and it sounded to me like if I was inside a barrel and somebody was hitting it with a hammer. And it just ruined my ears, and my ears never did quit ringing from that day on. And we never had, this cotton was all we had, no earplugs like you got now. So, that's the loud music that you may have heard today or nowadays, please be aware of it, because you won't be able to hear good in a few years. I can just tell you that's it's terrible. The ringing in your ears.
Okay, were you going to add to that?
Yeah, understand this, well, Bob is a year older than I am, I guess, but most of us guys, and for my high school graduating class, we had any number of fellows in the same outfit with us. We went into service when we were 18 years old, knew everything, you know, okay? But it didn't take as long to wise up what it was like. The reason cavalry was so successful was because we had mobility, jeeps, armored cars, half-tracks, and the weaponry. For instance, I was a point jeep commander, and we were ahead of everybody. The combat team was made up of an armored car, point jeep was way ahead, and the mortar jeep was behind. Now,
Mr. McCrory, I don't want to. I want to kind of do this in chronological order here. How about if we get you there first of all? We get you over to, or are you still talking about the training?
Training.
Training. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, Bob touched on weapons. When combat area, we were armed with two weapons. Like me, I had a rifle and I had a bazooka that I had. And the rifle had a piece that we slip on the end of the rifle barrel, lock it in place, and then we slip a rocket on there. And a unit that about that long and about that round was filled with high explosive powder. And had 10 rounds of that and another 10 parachute flares to go along with that. I had my rifle. Yeah. And they were gonna give me something else. But anyway, I was, worked on, the light machine guns, heavy machine, 50 caliber mortar crew. They took us out to a field and acquainted us with the mortar, strong breeze going from right to left, and you sit there and make your adjustments for wind compensation and whatnot. And 900 yards down there, they had a paper thing out there for target. And so I judged how the speed of the wind, and I didn't do anything. I just gave it how many moves on the weapon rate, so that it moved the barrel over so that it'd be going up into the breeze, and then the mortar shell would come down. Well, luck would have it, my shell landed on this target and just blew it all to pieces. A born gunner, and I said, what's that? The next time I fired, I missed it completely, you know. I didn't want more. But I wound up being front recon guy.
Okay, it's in 44 that you ship over to England. Okay, the war's been going on for now 2.5 years. Started in December of 41, or all the way through 42, all the way through 43, halfway through 44. The war is going to end halfway through 45. Okay, can you tell us about your stay in England? How long were you, when did you arrive there?
About a month. July is the first part of July.
First part of July.
And we landed in Utah Beach across the channel in August 7th. So just about a month. We were,
That would have been two months after D-Day, which we talked about
That's
last week. Well, do you recall, I mean, it's a long time ago, do you recall what your feelings were when you were on the continent? Now you were actually in a war zone. Did you recall any of your feelings?
sure, I do. I really did. On a ship going over Liverpool, we landed in Liverpool, England, and we sat there for like 13 days before we could get this big convoy unloaded and then finally get off the ship. And then we listened to the stories of the combat, the actual talking like you hear on TV today. It was on radio. And I personally was scared to death. I actually was scared. There must be Mr. Mayor.
That's Mr. Mayers.
I am. He just comes in for the guest speakers.
So I was going to tell you then, we landed at Utah Beach, and General Patton's Third Army came in at that time. And his major first big battle was the Battle of St. Lo. And it just about ended when we landed and got there. So we actually, that time the Germans were retreating in a lot of areas. And we can, if you want me to continue to tell you our march across France, and we finally got it from, you may have heard of course, Paris, the big city of Reims, France. And from there we went to Verdun, which was the battlegrounds of World War I, and then towards the city of Metz, Nancy. That's the way I pronounce it. They call it different over there, N-A-N-C-Y. But anyway, from there to Metz, and there's where it took 2 months to capture the city of Metz, maybe a little longer, about 2.5 months. I could continue on up to the Battle of Bulls, but if you want to follow, Bob, or what your experiences were, it might, all right, the 43rd, the 3rd and the 43rd kept separate. We run parallel with one another, pretty much, all the time. I think you guys were north of us and we were to the south.
Did-
Yes, that's
You were
right.
to our left and we were.
Do you recall your initial thoughts once you got on French soil and you knew that you were going to be maybe in danger pretty soon?
Well, once we got onto the continent, then our top sergeants and officers met with the big guy, Patton, and that left us back there and dispersed all the vehicles. And I was walking around checking everybody, and I heard, "Halt!" Oh, boy, I stopped. And the voice said, "Who are you?" And I said, "You remember me, I'm Bob." "Boom, boom, that's Bob McCrory. Take off your helmet." I flipped it off, and then I turned to look, stuff in his tank. Eyeballs, that's all he is. He's just living in fear. Christ, he's right behind the machine gun. One wrong word and bang, I would have been cut in half.
Yes.
After we got done later, I read him off goddamn good. I could have killed him myself. But then there was no place for us in the war that was going on at the time until things opened up a little bit and we could bypass. And then we were subject to sniper fire from the south flank. The Germans had been there long enough so that they intermarried. And a lot of people were susceptible to what Germany was doing and saying to them, and they were shooting at us. So you get all this snap and crackle going past you when you're going through an area.
Very first day, we got the mission was to go down this, France had a lot of hedgerows, and there was our 5 tanks in our platoon. And one tank would fire, the driver, or the assistant driver would fire his 30 caliber machine gun to the left, and then I would on our tank in the turret was another 30 caliber machine gun. They would fire to the right, and that's the way we done as we progressed down. And all of a sudden, my gunner taps me on my leg, and I didn't have my hatch closed down. I should have had it, but I didn't. I was not looking through my periscope. In other words, you could look through here, and a periscope would pick you up, and it was about that high, and go through the tank and metal. And they had a cover latch on that, just to protect it from rain. So it laid like this, and when you pulled the periscope out, it went perfectly flat. So, his machine gun, he tapped me on the leg, and I lowered my seat and got down, and the headspace on the machine gun was off, and it ruptured cartridge, so I had to clean that up. And just then, as I got the periscope hit me in the face, and I thought, well, it's just riding. But before I tried to get up, before I looked to make sure everything was okay through the periscope, it was shattered up here. The head got hit. Now, had I not, I guess the good Lord saved me. I'll never forget it. I was scared for many, many miles after that, and days. Had I not got down to fix that machine gun, and I would have gotten hit with a sniper that was up in the trees. He fired his gun and it went right through that periscope. So I was right in line, but I evidently just got down just in time. So that day we were to take a little town, a village. We got close to that, it was a roadblock. What they done, they hit the trees and blew them up and they crossed like this. And so you couldn't get into the town. And our mission then was to try to take this town. Well, we simply bypassed, couldn't get it, so we bypassed it. And that night, everybody was on guard. We had an outpost, either in your tank or somewhere sitting. And there was machine guns going off rifle fire all night long. It seems as though any noise when you're on outposts, we were all scared. That was our first day of combat. And so you did anything that moved, like Bob said, they fired at it. I can remember the next morning thinking, brother, we gotta go all the way to Berlin. Here's all this the very first day. Just so, whenever we got a mission to go, I was a tank commander, so I got involved with where we were, what our mission was, and I had, of course, I knew about. I was scared from the word go. And if you tell me you won't be scared, you're a different person.
So you did it, you did discover fear early on.
Oh, yeah. I don't know
Bob?
how you can overcome that.
Mr. McCrory, you remember?
After you get going, it's okay, but you've got to get, when you get told that you're going to go out and face gunfire, that could take your life, it's different from what you are sitting around here in a peaceful room like this. It's a different life entirely.
Mr. McCrory, you remember the first time that you felt fear over in Europe?
I don't know. I'd be totally honest with you, I never saw fear. I didn't sit there and chew my nails or anything. But my first night penetration, let me say penetration, most of our work was beyond first line of German defense. We found our way through there and go where we had to go, find out who was there, what was happening, and all that. There were 10-man teams. And our first mission was 20 miles penetration, and we stayed there 4 days. My last one, we loaded up our vehicles, our armored car, and 2 Jeeps. Well, there were 3 Jeeps we'd go take this time. And we loaded up for 2 weeks stay with ammunition and food, water, and stayed there a long time. God, debilitating. And we were so happy to get back, and we stayed away from enough stuff so that we're not a combat officer that we go out like the movies and kill everything that's there. If we could penetrate unseen, unarmed, do our work, and we'd come back out a different way, that'd be wonderful, you know. But I had the first mission to get back to it. My driver had been on one mission with me. I had a new man. We'd get our replacements out of troop headquarters. This guy drove half-track, now a 10x10 truck. So we all had the same amount of training in the States. Got different jobs finally. And Dublin was my machine gunner. And we go out at night. I never knew where we were going. Nobody would tell us. And dark, black night. Black, God. And we're going. And the longer we drove, I say, I knew no fear. My knees started going. It's all stress, really stress.
Yes.
And then I said, we had on our blackout lights, they're like a keyhole at the door, and each headlight, turn the right switch, and you just had this little light so somebody could see. We didn't see anything.
Call them cat eyes.
Yeah. Told my driver, I said, close up, I can't see, I can't see. That's all I heard. Jeez. Finally, we turned off that road, went onto the highway, which is 2-lane. Old highway, old trees, they had trunks that big tall things. And foliage hung over the road, except that through the center you could see the sky. I finally told him, I said, I'm gonna lay back and I'll look up at the sky. You can see? You see, right? Yeah. I said, I'll let you know. So we're going and it veered to the right. I said, hey, bring it back a little left, yeah, steady, this and that. And we went on for some time that way, and suddenly, bang! We stopped and I said, what the hell happened? I'm all shook up, you know. He says, we caught up with him. Still couldn't see.
So it was nerves. It was nerves, it was stress. That's
Yeah.
what he's trying to tell you.
Well, of course, it's just, you had to overcome your fear. If you're gonna do what your job is supposed to, if you're gonna accomplish it, and you couldn't go scared to death, but you overcome that just because you had a mission. But we did do a lot of reconnaissance work. We went in, like Bob said, behind the lines. Oh, constantly we were ahead of it. Well, no.
How long has it been since you guys have seen each other? Jack, it's been
Years. I can't tell you.
Oh,
I
God.
just
You
don't
hurt your
know.
hand, did I? Show me your hand. No, that way. Look at that. Oh, Jesus. Like a bear.
No, it's been, I just don't remember, maybe, could be as far as Fort Knox or down at Louisville, the reunion. I think that's when I last saw him, that was in 1990.
1990, so 20 years.
Getting old.
Yes.
So this is Mr. Jack Mayers who just came in. He's been to my class a number of times in the past already.
Yeah.
How's the ticker?
Well, the doc says it's good.
Good, good.
So,
We've been discussing from the word go
yeah.
to we're now over close to Metz. And
You could
now
remember.
these two guys were in the same squadron, in the 43rd.
I wonder, I got a problem remembering. And somebody mentioned that, what did we have, Indian blood in here, or somebody?
No,
No,
no. See?
no, I mean, it with all my heart. With all I read about them. The women from the Indian tribes, when they brought enemies back in the camp and interrogated, and they just weren't satisfied. I had read where
Yeah, I know that.
the Indian women skinned these guys.
That's enough, Bob. You don't
All
want
right. Well, anyway, we were in the wine country. We were in that wine country. And we drove into this little village, boy, the best one we've been in a long time, that birds in the street. And we drove in, and there was mother and dad, husband and wives lining that side of the street. And they're calling out, Vive de Gaulle, who was the French president, and Vive l'Americain. And then they're throwing flowers out to us. And their little kids are over there throwing green tomatoes at us. No respect at all.
I'm sure John would like to get in on this discussion.
Yeah, Bob.
Oh, yes, we've been talking. I think most of it's the truth. What I'm telling you is the truth, I'll tell you. But that's your mind.
Mr. Mayers, I asked these guys if the first time they felt fear when they got on French soil and realized that, hey, they could be in danger sometime in the near future. Do you recall that time? Do you recall the first
I
time?
think the first time was when Sinning got killed.
Who?
Sinning, Lieutenant Sinning.
Now, see, that was in years, I didn't know him, but, yeah. The first one is the one that hurt.
Yeah.
Anyway, most women, most females,
Bob,
what?
talking about World War II, we just,
So I am. I was there.
Mr. Mayers, you were going to continue with that.
This Lieutenant Sinning was a first lieutenant, and he was our assistant, assistant commander, first lieutenant, and we went out on this one raid, And there was a German patrol, the wagon went through, and they jumped up, and we had one up with 2 Jeeps, and he was firing into the back of that truck, and I don't know yet where the bullet came from, because all of a sudden, bang, he was laying on the ground. And so we picked him up and put him on the Jeep and took him back. But that's first I realized that it was danger. Because before that, we were just, well, we were wild kids, you know, I mean, young guys. And, well, like these guys, you know, most of the time, we had enough champagne in us that you didn't even know you were there.
The French people in every little village, they met you with champagne, wine, and golly, in our tank, the tank's a different thing. 2 drive shafts, and it was hot, there was a lot of heat in it. So we'd have no room to put all these bottles, so we put them down there. Every once in a while you'd hear one explode, the cork would fly out, and the fumes was the smell of the wine. But you couldn't refuse it. I guess you could have, but they're just so happy to see us.
Tell them about Dave Pinsker and the flowers.
Hello?
And the
The
flowers.
flowers that they gave him at one time in France. Wasn't that Dave Pinsker?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Doesn't matter who, but that
Yeah.
story was.
Yeah, that was, I know who it was. In one of these occasions, they come out with the flowers, this woman did, and this fellow took the flowers, and he felt that it was solid, something was it. And sure enough, he gave it back to her, closed the hatch, and the thing exploded. It was a line. This woman was going to kill this crew and throw it into the tank and too. So that's one thing. You didn't trust nobody after. You learn in a hurry.
Can one or all 3 of you describe what was the mission of a reconnaissance squad? The 2 Jeeps and the armored car, how are they supposed to function when they went out on a mission? Can one of you explain that?
Well, one of the 2 Jeeps would go, or one Jeep would go out ahead, the tank would be back here and with one Jeep. And the tank would go out, or the Jeep would go out ahead, and they were supposed to draw fire.
Yeah. The point man.
The point man drew fire.
Yeah, that was the guy that, you see those guys, we were a tank company, and we worked with the reconnaissance platoon, and you see that poor guy sitting in front, driving that Jeep. He's a guinea pig, he's the guy that gets killed first.
If they're a good shot.
Yeah,
Originally, they were supposed to go with motorcycles. Originally, we were issued motorcycles. They were supposed to do it with motorcycles, 2 motorcycles instead of 2 Jeeps. Because I know when I first got in service, one morning they came out and they said, how many you guys everybody raised their hand to run a motorcycle. And so the guys that raised their hand, and those that didn't raise their hands, went you, and you report to someone motorboat. For the next 6 weeks, all we did was rode motorcycles to learn. And what we had to do is we had to learn to take a motorcycle off of about a 7-foot drop and be able to swing it and land it and have they had Thompson submarine guns in our, like a saber, or what do they call them?
Scabbard?
Anyway, it's scabbard. They had them stuck in the front of like on the side of the motorcycle. And you were supposed to be able to land, be able to shoot that Thompson when you got down to the ground. So, but then they decided after that they didn't want them.
yeah, they dropped
They were too
out.
dangerous.
Yeah,
They were too dangerous, because then they went to Jeeps. So,
that's when we were first in Gordon.
right.
Yeah, that's-
And then what they used us for was to direct traffic, and when we went out training, we used to take the direct traffic, and they go on a convoy, we'd have to go the whole length of the convoy and get up in front to direct the traffic, and then once the convoy went by, then you let it all go by, and you had to pass it again.
I don't know why I think of this right now, but letters that my cousin Buddy sent home to his family. There was one letter that I think I've read to my class where he said, sometimes you might think that we haven't grown up or matured at all. We act just like little kids, but it's necessary in order to maintain our sanity. Is there any truth in this, that sometimes you had to just act really foolish and stupid? And what were some of the things that you did? Do you recall? Or you want
I think most of us guys were all 18 and 19 years old.
Yeah.
I think what 19-year-old guy does at the age.
You guys got something to look forward to.
See, that's what we were when we were only 18, 19 years old, most of us.
To be honest, in our Jeep, we had gifts from the French, was wine. And after our first mission, while we were gone, the squadron had captured a German warehouse of liquor. And our colonel backed up the trucks and took it all along. So we come off a mission and we had brandy, too.
5-star Hennessy, I can
Yeah.
remember
I
that.
remember we hit that plant.
Yeah, that was a big place, some big place where they had made all this liquor, and
So
the third cap took it, and then
They cashed it.
they captured it. I don't know.
we got all the stuff we wanted to drink and we got cigarettes and that was they didn't really learn how to smoke then.
Yeah, that's where most of them smoke.
That's when I started smoking, when I got over it, it did kind of maybe relax you, smoking.
And the word when was it 1944, Christmas of 1944, wasn't that when we were tied up there for a while?
We were tied up down by,
And
yes.
we took and we found in our outfit, we found a whole cache of these grenades that they used to use. The Germans had a grenade that they would take and they had an outfit they put on the end of their guns. And they'd take these grenades and they'd stick them over the top of it and then they'd shoot them like a mortar. So we confiscated a whole slug of them. So we were sitting right on the Sire River, and so we got to the point where we were pretty good at them. We'd use them. We'd sit there and we'd gamble, shooting across the river at spots, and we got so we could put them right on top of them. And of course, then our captain says, "Well, you guys are so damn good." He says, "I'll take and I'll fix you guys." He says, "The next time we get out, well, you guys are going to do the shooting with them rockets." But well, then another thing that our outfit did, they took and they captured a lot of these burp guns that the Germans had, and they got to the point where these guys would use them, our guys would use them, and they got to the point they stopped them using them because the only way you could tell whether German was or American was because the Americans had the gun and they go burp, 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 and those burp guns go bzz, bzz, and that's how fast they were shooting shells out. And so when we would go on patrol, they wouldn't let us take one of them burp guns because they never knew where the Germans were then. But there was a lot of difference in those guns.